Hey everybody, what is going on? This is Scott Garber and Andrew Petcash back with a special edition of the Profluent Sports Podcast, where we are highlighting founders, investors, executives across the sports business landscape. Today we have two familiar faces, Brent Richard from IMG Academy and Drew Weatherford from Weatherford Capital. And we are going to dive right into it as we are navigating a lot of changes in the sports landscape across the whole. And these two gentlemen are pioneering an incredible initiative called Project Add More Athletes. Gentlemen, before we get right into the conversation, just paint a little color and context to what you guys are doing outside of this project, and we will get right into the thick of it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Scott and Andrew. Appreciate you guys having us. I think it's an important cause, and really like that you guys are covering it. Give it some airtime. So thank you. Add More Athletes is pretty simple. On the back of the House NCAA settlement, it felt like there was far too much negative conversation and momentum, headlines around the potential to cut roster spots because there's this new world order in college sports and revenue sharing and the like. And we believe really passionately that we should be doing the exact opposite right now, that there is a new order. The world is changing. A new model is required. But that model should, at the core of it, include more roster spots, more opportunities for youth athletes, many youth athletes to play in college.
We totally agree with that. And we're going to unpack the nuances. Drew Weatherford, paint a little context to who you are and how you show up in the market, and then we're going to go right into this topic.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. It's super exciting to see, being a Tampa guy, you guys being in the Tampa Bay area. It's incredible to watch the growth and influence that you guys have established in such a short period of time. So just hats off to both of you. I know you've been grinding, and it's cool to watch, sincerely. I come at this from a couple different angles. One, I'm very fortunate to be able to be on the board with Brent at IMG. And so I'm kind of wearing multiple hats here as kind of a board member at IMG, as an investor in youth sports. But I also sit on the board of trustees at Florida State University. And so I've been kind of looking at this issue for several years now. And like most people, I was primarily focused too on what was happening at the football and basketball, and with really a small fraction of who this is impacting, right? We're thinking about revenue sharing, thinking about the implications of that, thinking about how private capital could solve problems in the marketplace. And I give Brent a lot of credit because really the biggest data point that showed up for me that was kind of jaw-dropping was how many high school athletes there are and how few of them actually end up in college playing sports. There's 8 million high school athletes every year, and only 500,000 of them get a roster spot. And to be honest, I had never thought about the matriculation of athletes, youth, whether it's, from youth to high school to the collegiate level. And I was blown away by just how limited the opportunity set is for these people and for these young men and women. That for me was what really got me thinking about the issue, frankly, from a more important lens, right? We're talking about the 97, 98% of the student athletes in this country and around the world. Not just the 2.5 that are going to now make money, which is super cool, which we're excited about and celebrate. But that was a really pivotal moment for me.
No, it's really cool. And I mean, it's neat to see with both of your guys' tenure, new solutions to the space instead of just playing with what we were given, now starting to carve out new opportunities to extend the athlete life cycle. Brent, going to come to you for the first question. Obviously we think of you as a visionary in the space from what you've done leading up to IMG. What was the ultimate catalyst that inspired you to go ahead and lead this charge around introducing a new layer within the collegiate ecosystem?
Yeah, the catalyst was simple. The conversations around, in a world where there's 8 million high school student athletes and only 500,000 roster spots, and we know that we know those families, and we know that they want more opportunities, not less. And so the recent conversations on the back of some legal proceedings, the House settlement, that resulted in this, what felt like almost a groundswell of excuses about why roster spots might be cut. That was a big catalyst. That was a really big catalyst. That was a wake-up moment to say, man, this is painful. This isn't good for anybody. Trustees don't like it. Alumni don't like it. It's for the kids and these teams that are being cut. It's a terrible situation. And we really need to make sure that as someone that really, I think, can represent the voices of 75 million student athletes and their parents, which is a really big constituency, that we just make sure wherever this goes, that we're giving them a voice in this conversation.
No, that's cool. And Drew, real quick, just to sort of piggyback that, you come at this from a different lens. Obviously, you sit on the board at IMG, but where did you see the gap? Like, I mean, you said that you had been thinking about this through a couple of years. What was ultimately the catalyst for you to say that I want to join forces here and move forward with this initiative?
The truth is like Brent and I for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I've been having ongoing conversations just about the implications of what this was going to mean, primarily starting from a business context. And what's beautiful to this for me is that ultimately, like, this is not business motivated. This is like truly like we are both just sincerely passionate about what sports has done in our lives and the impact that ultimately it has made. One of the first, and I'll let Brent tell the story. I mean, he told me a really moving story, like one of the first times I ever met this guy, about his experience in college and, actually having a program cut, which he can get into. But every day that goes by in my life, I put more value on what I learned in sports. Literally, like, you don't really know what it means right when you graduate and you're done playing sports, but every year that goes by, you start to realize that it's such a differentiator in the marketplace and in your home, and, in the way that you do life, and just the implications of understanding what I mentioned earlier, that there's already so few opportunities and there was going to be less opportunities just because of the sport I played, frankly, is going to take 80% of the money and is causing some of the issues. Again, I don't have a problem with it, but the ripple effects of the house case and taking that 500,000 to 400,000 or 300,000 is just like not okay, right? Yeah. It's just a non-negotiable. And so we didn't know collectively what we could do about it. We just started firing off ideas, using the lessons that we had learned through sport. I think one of the cool things, the reason why we're doing this together, is we realize like we will have a greater impact and we will have a better product and better ideas by working as a team. Where do you think we learned that? Yeah. A lot of people would be trying to pound their chest, like taking the spotlight here. And you got two guys that genuinely care about the issue for no motive of their own, really. I mean, it's really just to create more opportunity so that there will be more Brent Richards out there. And I know you guys both played sports, and more Scotts and Andrew that can be, impactful on this planet.
No, it's a fabric of what we do, and sports is a sacred ecosystem. And as we professionalize and commercialize it, it's a travesty that there is a cliff for millions of athletes that, put so much time in effort into developing this. How do we extend that career for them? I swear Andrew has a voice, but I'm going to continue to rock here. I'm curious, right? We have all these great ideas, and this feels very personal as we sort of get through the first bit of like understanding why you guys are doing it. Let's start to unpack what exactly is this framework, and what are you guys proposing to universities to take this idea and start to shape it into reality?
Drew, why don't you take that one? I can layer on.
Yeah. So the way we've thought about this, and it's taken us, quite a bit of time as we like peel back the onion. Ultimately, the issue here is not a demand issue. It's not an expense issue. It's a structural issue that we're dealing with here that's ultimately limiting opportunity. And there's a couple, policy things, if you want to call them that. Most of them are NCAA regulated. But the most glaring one for us, right, there's kind of two paths to go through here. There's, hey, schools right now could add what they used to have back, which are JV opportunities, right? My dad played for the freshman team at SMU. It was a JV squad. It wasn't an NCAA sanction. And guess what? They played against other schools. So that used to exist, and it went away for a number of reasons we don't have time to get into. So anyone could just bring that back, right, and add JV teams back. But there's also a kind of an NCAA regulation that prohibits it as well, which is they don't allow universities to have multi-divisions in the same sport. So to use my alma mater as an example, Florida State is not allowed to have a D1 and a D2 baseball team. Who is that good for, right? That's actually arbitrarily putting a lid on opportunity for student athletes. And as we've talked about, we know that there's plenty of demand. And the unfortunate thing about the dynamic is now you're left with kids, instead of being able to go to a really great educational institution, let's call it a top 20 public institution, are now left to choose between their sport and going and playing at a D2 school that may not be as good academically, right, and as good on their resume, or going to a good school. That is not a choice that we should be giving. That's not just, right? And so those are just a few examples of things that could be done to, broaden opportunity. And I think what Brent can touch on is that they can actually do so in a profitable way if they look at it through the right lens.
Yeah, Brent, I'd love to hear that.
I would just add to that. It's, the college system was set up like a generation ago. When you think about it, the rules that still govern how many student athletes, the composition, which teams. And it just turns out that things change over time. And you do not have to look any further than the youth sports ecosystem to understand both the demand as well as, how it can be done. The major clubs in youth sports ecosystem are running 2, 3, 4 teams at any given age. Take a soccer club. It's not when you have a great club in Texas, in Dallas, they don't sit there and say we can only have one team. They say we have a team at every age group. We have multiple teams in any age group, and those become great developmental pathways for the top team. And overall, it's just a great experience. It's also a really good way to operationally leverage limited field space, leverage coaching and other shared resources. So I think the financial model is there. You guys know IMG Academy, and so I think that you could also take that as a case in point if you want. We've won, I think now 12 national championships in the last 5 years, and we don't have media revenue. None. Ticket sales, none. The way it works is through participation. The way it works is leveraging limited, being really thoughtful about our fields and our capacity and our staff, and having multiple teams for kids at every level. And we show the pathways that work. Sean Gamble just went first round MLB draft. He was on our top national baseball team. They won a national championship this year. Turns out there's 13 baseball teams at IMG Academy. I think we've talked about that before. Sean Gamble came to IMG Academy as a camper. He then was not on the national team to start. He did 4 years at IMG Academy and made it to the national team and got the opportunity because he worked and he performed. Now think about that. If IMG Academy were subject to arbitrary rules about only having one baseball team, Sean Gamble would never exist. Coming out of our program, he would have never gotten the opportunity to develop. He effectively played on what is the equivalent of what we're talking about, a JV team. There are so many Sean Gambles out there that are not getting these opportunities in college because we've created basically an artificial system that is capping the supply well underneath what the demand from youth sports actually is for these roster spots.
And Brent, I want to go here, not to get off topic, but like from a catalyst standpoint, is it NIL? Is it changing legislation? Is it youth sports? Is it a need for a new model? What's sort of to you like the main catalyst or just one catalyst that has this going? Because there's so many different factors and movements coming in at play. What's the leading charge for you guys or leading few?
Good point, Andrew. If I were to try to summarize all of the moving parts in college, you could almost, in a business context, summarize it as a really interesting case in deregulation. People will write books about this. Like economists will write books about this in the future. We're living it right now. But it started with NIL in 2021 with a Supreme Court case, right? But a number of other things, lawsuits and other actions has taken a lot of the enforcement ability of the NCAA away. And now you have a situation where universities, conferences, who's kind of setting the rules? What are the rules? How is this going to work? And oh, by the way, in the middle of all of that, there's a whole new financial picture too. And so I think there's just this vacuum of regulation, and that's neither good nor bad. There's reasons why that exists. It's just a fact that it exists. And so in this moment, you have a lot of folks trying to figure out what it should look like in the future. But everybody's kind of looking to each other and all around to say like, well, who's deciding? And I think that's the context that we're in, Andrew. And that's why it's unprecedented. This is more change in college sports they've had in the last 50 years, in the last 4 or 5 years. And so I think it's really important in moments like this to really underpin some of the most important aspects of what is happening. While revenue is important and revenue sharing is important, NIL is important, and athlete rights are important, What's so great about sports is it's a platform for life. The vast majority of these kids, you ask parents in high school, that is what they want. They want the life skill development. They want that to happen in college, and they want the career trajectories on the back of it. They don't care about NIL. They don't care about revenue sharing. They don't care about a lot of other things. We know this. We've surveyed them. We have the data in addition to just working in this market. And so I think when you've got all this sort of chaos happening because of deregulation, it's important for people that have a voice to make sure that first principles are there. And in this case, we believe first principles here are let's figure out a new system that encourages more athletes.
Well said.
How can you go wrong with that?
Well said. And I would also say, to Brent's point about all the rapid change that has taken place, this is not meant to be an attack on the NCAA. The world was different when a lot of these rules were implemented, right? The demand has changed, what parents are willing to pay for student athletes, the value of those scholarships, the opportunity to make money in college, the opportunity to make money in the pros. Like when my dad came out of SMU, he could have gone and tried to play in the NFL. It really wasn't that compelling financially of an opportunity at that time. And man, has that changed? And that's not that long ago. And so it's just the whole paradigm and the whole ecosystem has changed. And so I just don't want this to come across of like, hey, these things take time to change. And we're at the impetus of potentially there being some legislative changes. And I think the most important thing here for legislators to think through before they, with the strike of a pen, make rule changes is to think about the implications of these things and don't think about just how to regulate this new revenue sharing and NIL and transfer portal. But there's some deregulation that needs to take place. And frankly, that's a lot more popular than regulation, right? No matter who you talk to for the most part. There needs to be the right balance of both, right? But there is some equally as much unregulation that needs to be done as there is regulating the new things and new dynamics in college sports.
Yeah, and Drew, I was going to go there. I was going to say, well, what about like the regulation side? So you sort of took that. Now, as we look to the future, what does success look like, right? From policy to, changing minds to a movement. How do you guys view this of when we look forward or we look back in 10 years, what was the seeds planted that led to, the trees and the success of this movement you guys are trying to build now?
Well, I'll give my perspective and Drew can jump in. I think that as a new order of college sports is set up, we should set it up in a way that really gives voice and listens to the voice of really the largest constituency here, which are these youth sports athletes and parents, when it is so much bigger. And I think that we should just, make sure that as the new rules and consequences, unintended consequences, are set up, that group has a voice in it. It doesn't mean it's the only voice, but it needs to be a part of the equation. And I think that if you listen to that group, the biggest outcome that we could hope to achieve of all of this is to, at the very least, set up a system that allows universities to add more athletes through JV teams, second teams, and ideally do it in the most cost-effective way. What we've looked at right now as an example, very specific things you can change, is that a D1 baseball team can't also have a D2 and a D3 baseball team. There's rules against that. Well, it turns out one of the biggest economic drivers of cost is gameplay. And so, yes, you could set up a JV team, but who are they going to play? How far do you have to travel? Wouldn't it be just a lot easier and a lot more practical if they could slot into existing local and regional competition in D2 and D3 structures? Just very practical solutions and not a ton of solutions. You can do one or two things and some schools may do it and some schools may not. But at least give the youth sports audience, these 8 million families who want a lot more than 500,000 roster spots, a chance to show that is true. And right now they don't have that chance. And I would just encourage us all to give them that chance to show their voice.
Yeah. Anything?
Yeah, well said. I think I echo all of Brent's comments. I would also say that this isn't the Brent and Drew show, an IMG Academy thing. So my real hope is that, one, the best ideas win the day for the benefit of youth athletes and just period, more opportunity. I don't care how it comes, right? Maybe this isn't the best idea. It's the best idea we could come up with, right? And we think it's actually pretty sound and we have some data to say that it's pretty sound. And I think it's logically, very sound. And then also I would
While you're talking, I'm just going to pull up for people listening, the imgacademy.com/add more athletes. I'll just share it so you can keep going. I
Cool.
just wanted to call that out
Yeah.
so people can check that out.
And then what I would say is I want this to be bigger than us. I would love for other people to join us in this initiative and in this movement. I think it benefits when you think about the benefits of not just adding more athletes, right, at the collegiate level, but adding more youth athletes, right? This is a lot bigger than just this one moment in time around the House case and the executive order that just came out, which is pretty interesting. And by the way, pretty aligned with what we're doing.
One last question before we turn the corner and sort of talk about what's on the horizon. You guys have been bringing this to market through op-ed pieces, talking to leaders across the space. I'm curious, what is the sentiment from, constituents within universities as we introduce add more athletes? What has been the feedback thus far?
Thought provoking. I think
Yes.
it may be the right phrase. We were fortunate. I mean, we've had some really great influential people getting behind it. Tim Pernetti, just in his media day for the American, conference, just really pushed. Think about a sitting commissioner, talking about representing schools, talking about adding more athletes. That's a change, right? In a world that's dominated by football and other headlines, like really focusing on that, what matters. I think that we've had, real interest from folks bipartisan in the sort of Washington ecosystem, which has been great. This seems like something that everyone cares about, which is wonderful. Kind of hard to go wrong with add more athletes. And I've really enjoyed and I'd say parents and families are grateful in the youth sports ecosystem, really generally just sort of saying, listen, these are some real pain points that we have. Like, you hear us and you're asking for our feedback, asking for our input. So that's been nice. And some on the university side, some of my favorite things are actually when the leaders at universities, could be in athletic departments or presidents, raise their hand and say, hey, actually, we're doing this. We've just added teams, or we do think about it, this way. And that's fun to uncover, because it turns out that, those leaders that think a little bit differently, that understand this full picture of what is great about sports for their campuses, including their enrollment, their tuition, tend to be already doing this, leading, So yeah, that's, those are the different constituencies. And it's really been fun to engage with the community and get some feedback.
Yeah, I would say the most encouraging thing, guys, is, and I'd like to think we had a very small part to do with this, but we've socialized these ideas for, the last several months, and have had some pretty strategic conversations. And the truth is like President Trump's executive order directionally is 100% in line directionally with what we're talking about here. And there's a difference. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. He's coming out and making a statement and hinting at where he would like to see things lead, and where he'd like to see them end up. And the administration seems to be very much a pro-Olympic sport, pro-women's sport, cut no sport, right? Unless there's like really good reasons to do so. And so we feel really good about some of the language and directionally where the administration wants to take this. We're going to keep working hard on it. We're probably going to take a trip to DC here and have some strategic conversations with the right folks. And we're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
No, well, look at, it's humbling to be able to go ahead and be at the inception of what is going on and what change is going to look like. And I think as builders, this is what you dream about, right? You get opportunities to start to shape what the next landscape will ultimately be. And, collectively, we all get to put our, fingerprints on that. It's very exciting. And, we didn't even get a chance to get to what Varsity Light looks like, but it's a good way to dangle the carrot, because this is a framework, right? This is the start of a conversation. And, excited to announce that we're going to be bringing the industry to IMG Academy, showing off the mothership, and then also having a program around how do we take it, and find alignment with all of the constituents that you were talking about to help add more athletes to this ecosystem. So more information to come, as that's going to be rolling this fall. But gentlemen, from Profluence, we're built on education, access, and support, and you guys are embodying it in every sense of the word. So thank you for what you're doing for sports. And any parting words, Mr. Richard, we'll pass it to you, and then Drew, you'll bring us home.
I appreciate you guys. This this is a lot more than IMG and a lot more than me and Drew. And so it takes folks like Profluence, like the two of you, to get behind it. You have no idea what a big impact it can make. We all do our little part, and it really adds up. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Echo Brent's comments, and excited to continue to work with both you, Scott, and Andrew, as we try to create a pretty special gathering of people at IMG in the not too distant future. And hopefully that will be a manifestation of a lot of this that we're talking about here today.
I love it, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. We're all better for it, and a lot more to come in a short amount of time. So if you're listening to this, be sure to do your homework, read those op-ed pieces, visit img.com, learn more about Project Add More, and be on the lookout for ways where you can lean in and put your shoulder to the plow and be a part of the solution. Hope everyone has a great one. We'll talk soon.